Unfortunately, we've all had to attend a funeral at one time or another. Often, a funeral is the signature to a long, full life, or sometimes relief from a tragic illness. In addition to the anguish and pain of personal loss, is that feeling of complete helplessness. Because in most cases, there is nothing that you or I, or even the deceased, could have done. But sometimes, there is the stark and haunting reality that a tragedy could have been prevented. The purpose of this program is to try and make sure that you never have to live with that doubt, or be the victim of such a tragedy.
On February 13, 1992, a foreman with over 14 years service was out with a track maintenance crew removing ice and snow from switches near a protected level crossing.
He was what I call a foreman's foreman. If you asked another foreman what the best foreman they knew, they'd say, oh yeah, George. Because he did everything right. He was easy to work for, he was easy to work with.
The crew split up into two teams, with 3 track maintainers working east of the crossing on the crossover switches, while the foreman and a track maintainer worked on a siding switch on the west side of the crossing. The track maintainer was chipping ice with a lining bar, while the foreman blew the ice fragments out of the switch with a gas-powered backpack blower. Via number 65 was an hour behind schedule and rounded the curve 3/4 of a mile east of the worksite at a speed in excess of 90 miles per hour. Seeing personnel on the track, the locomotive engineer sounded the whistle and bell.
And that's when Malcolm noticed such a passenger coming and hollered, and we cleared. And we saw the train coming, and we knew they weren't going to clear. You could just tell, and it's just a matter of time. We screamed and hollered and run towards the crossing, but there was nothing we could do. It was too late.
Unfortunately, the 2 men had their backs to the crossing gates, the other group, and the train.
I don't know, you just feel cold, or you know that they ain't moving, and it's scary, I'll tell you that.
The track maintainer chipping ice was standing to the side of the track. At the last minute, he noticed the train and fell to the side. The foreman, who was standing between the rails, was not as fortunate.
And how do you explain to a woman that you know that her husband has been killed, and she looks you straight in the eye and say, why? And you don't know the answer.
It's very simple to have an accident out there. You don't need to wait a week for it to happen. You could walk out on the track for 20 times in the same day and have nothing happen, and you could walk out in 2 seconds on that track and you're gone.
I want to know exactly where the trains are before we get out there and go anywhere near the track. I want to know where they are. I want to have proper protection, or I won't go out there at all.
I felt quite nervous there after that. It scared me bad. I mean, I don't know. Some people can't realize, I don't think, a situation like that until something happens like that. It's, once you see it,
My personal opinion is that we are working closer together, and everybody's watching for everybody.
Two years earlier, on November 27, 1989, 2 welders were attempting to start a portable hand grinder to grind a frog. Despite a 7-mile clear line of sight, they were both struck by a freight train. One was killed, the other permanently disabled. And on February 10, 1986, 2 track employees with 67 years combined service were slotting joints on a curb with a quick cut saw. A lineup found in the truck noted extra 5286 East. Both men were struck and killed by 5286 East, which was running late.
There is much to learn from these tragic incidents. 1. All these fatalities occurred in the winter. When it is cold or raining, nobody wants to spend more time out on the track than they have to. Weather can limit your judgment. Everyone wants to get the job done faster, sometimes at the expense of safety. 2. In all cases, the victims did not see the train until it was too late. Certain clothing can limit your field of vision, and there is the tendency to keep your back to the wind. If you don't have a clear line of sight of approaching trains, one that gives you enough time to get clear of the track, you're setting yourself up. 3. In all cases, the victims did not hear the oncoming train until it was too late. Tests have shown that working with power tools masks the sound of any freight or passenger train's whistle until they are merely seconds away. Any clothing that covers your ears can compound this problem. Often, you just can't hear the train. 4. In all cases, the victims could have arranged protection or received train information from the RTC, or could have implemented a safety watch. In some of these cases, it was assumed the train had passed, when in reality, it was only late. If you don't have up-to-the-minute facts, you're guessing. Verify train locations before you even think about setting foot on the track. Assume nothing, except that your information could be wrong. 5. All 4 men could still be alive had track protection been arranged, or had a safety watch been posted and maintained. When all your attention is focused on your work, or your sight and hearing is limited by the working conditions, the only thing standing between you and a train is track protection, or the eyes and ears of a fellow employee who is doing nothing but looking out for you. These incidents involved only a few employees working without track protection. But there are also risks when working on protected track with a large group of employees.
Whenever you came to tell me my husband had been killed and hit by a train, I said, you know, you can come here and tell me that there's been an accident with a machine. He's been run over by a bulldozer, but my husband works on a railroad track. He knows trains. You do not get hit by a train, you know. That's the last thing that you think of, you know, because he knows he has to protect himself.
On September 19, 1990, a large team of city, private contractor, and CN employees were refurbishing a level crossing.
It was fairly busy. They had everybody there at the same time, which is normal, but they were doing 2 crossings. There was a lot of people, a lot of noise for a long time, and pretty well consistent action with the trains and that, and the way we were informed of trains.
The protecting foreman received a request from an approaching train to proceed through the limits of the Rule 42. The request was relayed to the foreman in charge, who began to notify the men on the site that a train was approaching.
I was telling everybody that the train was coming, and I had to tell a lot of people that day. And I was working from west, going east.
The train was authorized through the work limits at track speed.
I was walking east towards the train. I was on the south, the train was on the north. When he got close to me, I immediately remember thinking, this guy's flying, and they weren't going that fast all day.
The broom came towards the crossing and Bob Scudder backed up, and he stood on the north track facing south, so he didn't see the train at all.
I saw the people on the tracks, and I'll never forget the feeling. It was just like it stopped in my head, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with the picture.
And then I threw him, and as I threw him, I didn't let go and I held on, or I would have got killed.
I saw the people move, jump, or whatever, and I remember telling myself they got clear. And then I remember thinking they couldn't have possibly got clear. That train was going too fast.
Everyone at the site, including the train crew, thought that both the foreman and maintainer had been hit. It was soon discovered that they were okay.
I was picking myself off the ground with Scudder. They told me somebody got hit. I said, who? No. Because I thought everybody was safe behind me, because I told everybody behind me.
Tragically, another track maintainer had been hit and killed. To this day, no one knows exactly how the track maintainer, a man with 18 years of experience, 10 as the local rep on the Health and Safety Committee, ended up in the path of the train.
It's devastating. Your life is shattered. Your family and yourself, everything comes to an end. I mean, at 40 years old, you don't expect your spouse not to come home. You know, you've still got a family, you've got a household. All of these things are all on your shoulders. That partner isn't there for you anymore.
You can't believe it, you know. You say, oh no, it's not true, you know. That's what you say it to yourself, and just like a part of you is gone, you know. It's especially if it's your friend, you know. And he was a good friend of mine, and I knew his wife and his kids, and I played Santa Claus at his place sometime, you know. So, you know, I was a good friend, and it hurts when somebody is his life is taken at a young age, you know. It's hard.
I believe that people do realize the liability on the track or on about the track, but I further believe that they don't believe it could happen to them, where it could happen to them. In a split second, their life could be over.
Until it happened, I realized how easily it could happen to anyone, not just me. That you couldn't say that there was one glaring error. There wasn't. But when you add them up, I realized how too many mistakes. It could be me, it could be anyone. And like I said, there's no way out. There's no forgiveness. I'll never forget that.
Even with regrettable events such as these, you can learn something valuable. 1. The workday must always start with a job briefing, followed by subsequent briefings whenever the work or conditions change. The foreman in charge and selected designated employees must ensure that everyone for whom they are responsible is informed of approaching traffic, and that the track is clear before traffic is authorized through the work limits. Never assume that everyone else knows what you just heard. There's no harm in hearing it twice. If someone is left out of the loop, someone can get killed. And once you have been warned, stop your work and move clear of the track immediately. 2. In some cases, CN radios or external loudspeakers were not turned on, or employees simply didn't listen to the transmissions. Your CN radio and external speaker can be your lifeline to what's going on. Turn them on, keep them on, and listen. 3. Most fatalities involve employees with many years of service. Rarely is a new or inexperienced employee killed on the job. Your worst enemy is complacency. When you've done it 1,000 times before, nothing's going to happen to you, right? Wrong. Not all accidents are fatalities. Some result in permanent disability, others in loss of or damage to equipment. And then there's near misses. Often the only difference between a near miss and a fatality is luck. Your family depends on you to return home safely each day. You can't rely on luck. What you can learn from these tragedies is to recognize a potentially hazardous situation before it develops. Learn to be on the defensive and alert when the risk factors begin to rise. Update train information. obtain track protection, or assign a safety watch. Conduct job briefings and update as required. Use common sense. Keep an eye out. Expect the movement of a train at any time, on any track, in either direction. Don't end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you treat every day on the job like it's your first, it won't end up being your last. And if you think it can't happen to you, think again.